Very good evening, everybody, and welcome to the studios of Sound to Light just outside of Carnmore, because tonight is Youth's Night. Tonight is a night where youth players will know who they're facing in their respective cup competitions for 2023. It's hard to believe that when youth rugby started off and competitions were formulated, that there were only two age groups, under 16 and under 18. Under 14 then followed suit, and it was all predominantly lads, until more recently when the girls' competitions started to come into force, and for good reason, given the growth of the girls' game in the province. But it's not just the growth of the girls' game, it's the growth of the game overall. From those two competitions, we now have 9. We've got 3 girls' competitions and 6 boys' competitions. The girls' competitions are in under 14, 16 and 18, and the boys' competitions are 13s, 14s, 15s, 16s, 17s and 18 and a half. Now, one thing about tonight's draw is there are a few little things that have to be sorted as we talk through it, and we'll go into that in more detail when the time comes. But I'm delighted to be joined by the chairman of the competitions committee for age grade rugby in the province, John Fitzmaurice. And John, we are talking about a competition that has grown. It's amazing. I was figuring it out. I remember under 16 and under 18 competitions, in the early 90s. So since then, if we use that as a kind of a benchmark, since the early 90s to 2023, we have seen an incredible growth of the game at underage level in the province.
We have indeed, yeah. As you say, we started off with only under 16, under 18 boys. Since that, we've got 3 age grades at girls, and we have 6 age grades at boys. And that's huge credit to the amount of volunteer work that goes in clubs, and with the backup of the club and community in Connacht.
And the schools, are also very much, I just noticed, I was looking at the draws for the schools cups, and back in the day there was probably just one junior cup, one senior cup, but now you've got A, B and C. It's also showing the growth of the games in the schools. And I know, part of your remit is the schools cup competitions as well, and they're underway at the moment. And, again, the growth of the game at schools level is testament to the work that's been done by those particular coaches you speak of, both club and at school level.
Absolutely. In some cases the coaches will be coaching in clubs and schools. There's a crossover. They communicate with each other and work with each other all the time. And the growth in the game is massive, thanks to them, and thanks also to, the success of the international team, which brings a great interest in the game. More people want to play the game, and it's just a continuing circle then.
As they say, a rising tide floats all boats. And speaking of rising tides, sponsorship is crucial, and once again, delighted to have Bank of Ireland on board to sponsor these cup competitions. It's cliched, I'm blue in the face saying it, but I'm never ashamed to say it. Without sponsorship, cup competitions and these competitions just couldn't happen.
Absolutely, and we're so glad to have sponsors like Bank of Ireland, because without them, competitions like this just wouldn't be possible.
You're going to be a very busy man over the next while, John, and you better get your fingers warmed up, because we are now going to move on to the first of our draws. Now, the way the draws are going to be done tonight is, first of all, we will have the girls' competition draws, so under 14, under 16 and under 18. And then we will move into the boys under 13 and so on, up to under 18 and a half. You will also see a subtle change regarding the under 17s and under 18 and a half boys competitions. This year it's not knockout, it's been done in a pool format. So you will see the pools being drawn, and when all of that is done, we then move into the final stages draws, and one draw will determine the final stages of each competition. So there's a bit to get through, and we will try and keep you informed on what's happening, but make sure you've got a pen and a paper ready, because you're going to be doing a lot of writing over the next few minutes. I'm not even going to say how long it's going to take, because we don't know, but we hopefully will get it done as quickly as possible. We are going to start with the draw for the Girls Under 14 Cup. One thing I will add as well is that you will see teams in yellow. Those teams that are in yellow are the seeded teams, and it's the same way for each draw throughout each competition. So we'll use the under 14 girls as the perfect start, and we have our seeded teams, who are Claremorris, Craig, Corinthians, Buccaneers, Sligo, Westport, Ballina and Chumuk Derard, who have been immense over the past couple of seasons since their development as an amalgamation. Then we move on to our unseeded teams, and it's great to see teams, John, just if we may for a minute. I know I mentioned Tumuk Derard, and they've done great work in Corinthians, as we both know, and as I know in Craig's as well, they've done this as well. But to see the likes of Dunmore involved in it as well, Ballinasloe, great to see them involved again, Castlebar back again, Gort Munavay as an amalgamation, Carb. It's great to see those teams back in these competitions, because under 14 girls is where it starts for them, and that's that's one of the crucial things about it.
Absolutely, yeah. And a lot of these girls would have come right through from minis in these clubs, and even as you say, we've seen it for a while in some of the bigger clubs, but even in some of the smaller clubs, we're now seeing huge numbers coming through at all age grades, and including the girls.
And 10, 15 years ago, it might have been almost unthinkable to see the likes of Claremorris, involved, and now they're a seeded team in this cup competition, and the likes of Dunmore, of course, and their development work that's going on there. I know they do great work in Loughrea, in Connemara. It's great to see them as well. There's so many good teams here. We're in for a fantastic competition at under 14 girls level. Well, let's bring you through what happens now at this particular stage. And over here is the big wall. And the big wall is going to give us an idea of what teams are going to go where. Now, our unseeded teams are going to be drawn out first. They are then going to go into different positions, the teams in white. And they will be going down the line. And then we move into the seeded teams, and those seeded teams will be playing, as you can see, either away or home. It's not going to be a case of being drawn out and, you get a home draw. You're not that lucky. No, you may have to do a little bit of travelling. But don't worry about it. We will talk you through it as it happens. And John, if we will go into the unseeded.
Just to correct you slightly, John, it's actually the seeded teams drawn first. And
okay.
They're going to the seeded positions first.
So the seeded teams are drawn first. My apologies. Now, I will rustle them around, and you can draw the first seeded team. So, fair play. And the first seeded team who get a bye are Ballina. So Ballina get a bye it's the quarter-final. Our next seeded team who will be doing a bit of travelling are Buccaneers. So Buccaneers will be on the road. Our next team drawn at home, and they will love John Fitzmaurice for this, is Tumuk Derard. So are they going to Tum or are they going to Derard? Well, time will tell. Now we move on to our next team, and they will be away from home. So Westport, you're on the road. So Westport will be doing some travelling. Next team who will be at home, another Mayo team, but it's Claremorris. So Claremorris will now be at home. The next team will be away from home, and it's Sligo. So Sligo will be the team away from home. At home, Corinthians. So it's going to be Clondesh for Corinthians, whoever takes them on. And then away from home, and they won't like me for this, but it's Craig's. So Craig's are on the road. So they're our seeded teams and where they are going to be. So let's recap where the seeded teams are going to be. Ballina have got to buy into the quarter-final. We see that. Buccaneers will be away. Tumuk Derard will be at home. Westport away. Claremorris at home. Sligo away. Corinthians at home. And Craig's away from home. So we now move on to the unseeded teams to see who goes where. And the first team that will be drawn out will be at home to Buccaneers. So, where will Buccaneers be going? Well, Buccaneers will be travelling. A nice spin for them down the motorway. They're heading to Gort Munavay. So it's Gort Munavay at home to Buccaneers. Who are travelling to Tumuk Derard? Well, it's Corrib. Not that bad of a spin for Corrib over to Tumuk Derard. The reason I smile is I love a good Mayo derby. And it's Castlebar who are at home to Westport. That will be an absolute dinger. The team that will be travelling to Claremorris are Connemara. Connemara will be travelling to Claremorris. And we then move on. So who are Sligo travelling to? They are going to Ballinasloe. Sligo will be travelling to Ballinasloe. Now, who are heading to Corinthians? It's Dunmore. Dunmore will be travelling up the N17, or whatever they call it these days, to Corinthians. And finally, Craig's will be going to Loughrea. So it's Loughrea who will be at home against Craig's in the last 16 of the Girls Under 14 Cup. So let's recap once again. And it's Ballina who will buy into the quarter-final, as we know. Gort Monivea at home to Buccaneers. Tuam Uachtarard at home to Corrib. Castlebar at home to Westport. Claremorris at home to Connemara. Ballinasloe at home to Sligo. Corinthians at home to Dunmore. And Loughrea at home to Craigs. Games fixed for the weekend of the 25th of February. So that is the last 16 of the Girls Under 14 Cup. We'll now move that away and we'll start moving on to the draw for the Under 16 Girls Cup. Now, regarding the final stages, I did mention there is another draw to be made, so you're not finished as regards your draw just yet. Now, we're moving on to the Under 16 Girls, and once again we have seeded teams who will be drawn out first. So you have Tuam Uachtarard, Sligo, Ballinasloe, Craigs, Ballina and Corinthians. The unseeded teams are Claremorris, Loughrea, Corrib, Gort Monivea, Castlebar Westport, amalgamated for this, Buccaneers and Connemara. So John, I will throw them in and we will move to our seeded team. So our first seeded team, John, I take it will get a bye. And that, it's Craigs. So it's Craigs. Next up is Ballinasloe. So Craigs first, Ballinasloe second. You see they have byes. We move into our third team to get a bye, and it's Ballina. Ballina. Now we move into what is going to be the kind of matchups as regards it. And this team will be away from home in the Under 16 Cup, and it's Corinthians. So Corinthians will be on the road in the last 16. At home, who will be travelling to Strand Hill because it's Sligo. Sligo will be at home. And we then move on to our next team who are away from home for this one, and it's Tuam Uachtarard. Tuam Uachtarard. So they are our seeded teams that have now been drawn, and we'll recap on all of those in just a moment. So if we can get our... So Tuam Uachtarard, Sligo, Ballinasloe, Craigs, Ballina and Corinthians are all drawn. So, unseeded teams are next. So, in they go. Now, the one thing about it is, John, of course, that we, as you can see, we have 6 seeded teams, but we have 7 unseeded teams. Mm-hmm. So, there is going to be a case of 2 unseeded teams playing each other, I would reckon, by my maths on that one.
At later stages in unseeded teams playing each other, absolutely, yeah.
Yeah. So, right, so we now know the 3 teams who have byes, but who is going to be at home to Corinthians? John, okay. If you would do the honours, please, sir. So the team at home to Corinthians are Loughrea. So Loughrea will be at home to Corinthians. Not a bad spin for Corinthians. The team that will be travelling to Sligo are Corrib. Corrib will be away to Sligo. Tuam Uachtarard will be heading to Buccaneers. Tuam Uachtarard heading to Buccaneers. Next up, and this is where we have our unseeded teams getting into the mix, and the team at home, Castlebar Westport. Castlebar Westport, and they will play Gort Monivea. Gort Monivea. And finally, I think we have 2 teams left, and the team that have drawn out at home are Claremorris. Claremorris, and finally they will be playing Connemara. So that is the draw for the last 16 of the Girls Under 16 Cup. So let's recap once again the draws as it has been made, and the weekend of the 18th of February for these games. Craigs, Ballinasloe, Ballina all have a bye. Loughrea at home to Corinthians, Sligo at home to Corrib, Buccaneers at home to Tuam Uachtarard, Castlebar Westport at home to Gort Monivea, and Claremorris at home to Connemara. And that is the Girls Under 16 draw is complete. Now, we will be moving into the next stage, of course, and the final stages of that particular. But John, we're 2 draws down, and already some cracking matchups from both under 14 and under 16 girls level.
Yeah, there's a good mix there. You can see that there are some teams with some distance to go, but also a few good local derbies. So yeah, some good matches to look forward to there.
It'll be a great day out, actually. I mean, for the likes of Tumuk Derard who are heading to Buccaneers, I mean, that's a cracking day for them. And even for Castlebar Westport having to head to Gort, Munavay, you know, that'll be a great day out as well, because it's more than just the rugby. It's an occasion as well. And it can be a real sense of excitement for these young players. They may play them in the league, they may not play them in the league. It might be a chance to go somewhere new and experience what all that's about.
Absolutely. You know, I mean, a lot of these games, you know, the games themselves are important, but what's important as well is that players getting together, socialising. You know, there's a great initiative now in Connacht Rugby, the Spirit of Rugby. You know, so it's all about getting players to interact. You know, after the game. You know, like what happens on the pitch stays on the pitch. Afterwards, we're all friends. You shake hands. You know, you go to each other's dressing rooms. You have a chat afterwards. You know, so it's building relationships. You know, that later in life, you know, players who play each other on the pitch will meet each other again in college later, and those relationships are already formed, you know.
Well, it's going to be fascinating to see how those games go out. And like I said, just to remind you once again, there's still another draw to be made. So you're not finished yet regarding the under-16 girls. You will have to stay with us for a little while longer, because there will be, if you happen to win those games, you will want to know what happens next. It's going to be an interesting under-16 draw, but now it's time for one of the major competitions when it comes to Irish rugby at club underage level, and I am talking about the girls under-18 cup draw. It's fascinating that in the past number of years, the teams that have won it, and looking at the cup behind me, because it's very apt, John Fitzmaurice, that we're actually using the girls under-18 cup to do these draws, and we have to look also at the teams that are seeded, and those teams will fancy their chances, but the teams who are unseeded will fancy having a cut at them. And just to make the point as well, that it's great to see, like the Tumuk Derard, they have two teams in this competition. You know, the red team are seeded, the green team are unseeded, and you have again the likes of Corb, Banrobe. You know, these teams are starting to rebuild their girls' programs again. It's wonderful to see all these teams involved, for starters.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, and you know, the fact that they have enough numbers, even though they're an amalgamated club, they have enough to put two full teams in, is testament to the work that's been done at under 14s and under 16s, bringing those girls forward. And now at under 18s, we have this many teams and this many players involved. It's fantastic.
It really is. And of course, it all leads well to a good interprovincial side down the line as well. And we must not forget that either. Let's just go through the teams that are seeded first of all. They are Tumuk Derard Red, Craigs, Ballina, Ballinasloe, Galwegians, Claremorris, Buccaneers Corinthians, the famous Barbarians. The senior team got to the Senior Cup final last season, lost out to Galwegians, an absolute classic in the sports ground. And you've got Sligo as well as the last seeded team. The unseeded teams are Gort Munavay, Tumuk Derard Green, Westport, Ballinrobe and Corb. And once again, just to go through the way the teams are going to be drawn out, the first three teams drawn out will receive a bye straight into the quarter-finals, and then the next seeded team will be away from home, then home, and away, as you see there. So, John, if we would, we'll get on to the business of the evening. Give them a bit of a spin around. So the first team that are going to be drawn out that will receive a bye into the quarter-final of the Connacht Under-18 Girls' Cup, and they will love you in Mayo because it's Claremorris. Claremorris have received a bye into the quarter-final. The next team to receive a bye, and I'm feeling Dave Purcell and those in Craigs will love you too, because it's Craigs. So Craigs are into the quarter-final of the Girls Under-18 Cup, and the next team drawn at home, well, they will be at home because they have a bye. It's Ballinasloe. So we have three teams that have been drawn, and those three teams are into the quarter-finals, Claremorris, Craigs and Ballinasloe. Now we move on to the teams, the seeded teams, and where they're going to be positioned in this. And the team that will be travelling for the last 16 are Buccaneers Corinthians. So Buccaneers Corinthians will be away from home, and this team will be at home, and Dervla Campbell will be a very happy camper because it's Galwegians. Galwegians are at home. Away from home in the last 16 are Sligo. So Sligo are away from home. Next team will be at home, and it will be Ballina. So a team will be travelling to Heffernan Park for that one. And then we move into our next team, and this is our last of our seeded teams, and it's Chumuk Derard who will be away from home. So there are seeded teams, and that's the way that they're positioned. The seeded teams are drawn out like this. Claremorris, Craigs, Ballinasloe, we know, have byes. Buccaneers Corinthians will be on the road. Galwegians will be at home. Sligo away. Ballina at home. And Chumuk Derard Red will be away from home. So we now move to the unseeded teams and find out where they're going to go. So let's do this first. And John, if you wouldn't mind, we'll take the first team out. So this team will be at home to Buccaneers Corinthians. And the team that will be at home to Buccaneers Corinthians are Westport. So Westport will be at home to Buccaneers Corinthians. So who's going to travel to Crowley Park? And the answer is Corrib. Short spin from Headford into the city for Corrib. Next up, and this team will be at home to Sligo, and it's Ballinrobe. So Ballinrobe will be at home to Sligo. Next up, and this team will be, so it's Ballinrobe at home to Sligo. So the next team is away, and it's Chumuk Derard Green. Chumuk Derard Green. And the last team, who will be playing Chumuk Derard Red, are Gort Munavay. Gort Munavay. So we now have our draw for the last 16 of the Girls Under 18 Cup. And it is Claremorris, Craigs, Ballinasloe byes. Westport at home to Buccaneers Corinthians. Galwegians at home to Corrib. Ballinrobe at home to Sligo. Ballina at home to Chumuk Derard Green. And Gort Munavay, they're at home to Chumuk Derard Red. And John, before we go any further and we wrap up the girls' draw, Chumuk Derard probably, maybe a little bit disappointed their green and red team haven't been drawn against each other, but I mean, that's the way rugby goes.
Yeah, it could have happened. I think it's worked out well the way it is. So, look, they may meet each other yet, you know.
Well, it's very possible. Yeah. And like I said, with the other two draws, don't go anywhere because we will be looking at the draws for the final stages in a little while. They're the girls' draws for 2023. The very best of luck to you and your team in the competition. We hope that you go very, very well. And now it is time for the boys' draws. And the boys' draws are under 13, 14, 15, 16, 17 and 18 and a half. And the under 13 draw will be coming up shortly. Well, we hope you got a chance to digest those girls under 14, 16 and 18 draws. And, as we said, the very best of luck to your club in those competitions. It's now time for the Boys Youth Cup draws. Once again, our thanks to Bank of Ireland, who sponsor these competitions. In fact, sponsor all 9 of the Connacht Youth Cup draws, whether it be boys or girls rugby. And now we move to the under 13 draw. Now, it's going to be an interesting little, shall we say, a change or two in this, because unseeded teams now get drawn out first. And John Fitzmaurice, we're looking at the teams that are involved. A lot of clubs involved in the under 13 Boys Cup. I see the seeded teams and the unseeded teams are here. And I see the unseeded teams are in front of me. They're going to be drawn out first, but a lot of teams involved. Let's just go through them. The seeded teams are Claremorris, Loughrea, Galway Bay, Craigs, Ballina, Ballinasloe, Galwegians, Buccaneers, Sligo, Corinthians and Oughterard. The unseeded teams, and it's great to see Carrick and Shannon, John, involved in this. They're, one of the smaller clubs, to be fair. Great area. We all love Carrick and Shannon, but it's great to see them now at underage level as well. And we see Gort, Castlebar, Monavea, Tuam, Westport, Corr, Banrobe, Connemara and Dunmore. To see all of these clubs, fielding teams in this competition, in this cup competition shows how much it means to them.
Yeah, absolutely. And for teams like Carrick and Shannon, who may feel at times that they are a little bit isolated, because they when teams have to travel there, it's a long way to go, and vice versa. But we see last year, I think it was at under 14, they were in a cup final. So there is every chance of success for those teams.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're right, they were in an under 14 cup final, I think, if my memory serves me right, and it shows the work that's been done at underage there and how much development is being done. Now, I'm going to go through the format for the under 13 Boys Cup draw, and as you can see, the teams for the preliminary rounds, as you can see, they're all white, and that's because they are the unseeded teams that will be playing in the preliminary round. The winners of these games will then find themselves in the last 16 draw. And the last 16 draw will see seeded teams, and they'll be drawn first. So they will end up playing. So we will have 3 games where one seeded team will be going out, and then you have the winners of the other games behind me. They will then be involved with the seeded teams in the second half of that draw. So there's a little bit of work to be done, but we'll talk you through it. We'll go through it as we progress. So, John, we will take these out, make sure that they're gone in and got a bit of a jiggle around. Okay, so we're now moving into these are the unseeded teams who will be playing each other in the preliminary round. And the first team who will be at home are Castlebar. Castlebar will be at home in the preliminary round, and they will play Gort. Nice spin for Gort up to Clondesh to take on Castlebar. Next team, and they will be at home, are Tuam. So, Goran Park. And it's a local derby because Tuam are playing Dunmore. Tuam will play Dunmore. Next up, and this team will be at home, and it's Westport. Westport will be at home, and they will play Monavea. Westport will play Monavea. Our next team will be at home in this preliminary round of the Under 13 Boys Cup, and it's Connemara. So Connemara will be at home. So who's making the journey to the Monastery Field? It's a journey and a half for Carrick and Shannon. Carrick and Shannon will be travelling to Connemara. Next up are Corrib. So Corrib will be at home, and they will play Ballinrobe. Another local derby, you could say, so to speak, just down the road from each other. So Corrib will play Ballinrobe. So let's recap our preliminary round games again. Gort making the journey to Castlebar. Tuam and Dunmore, local derby, 13 kilometres between each other. Westport taking on Monavea. Long journey for Carrick and Shannon, but they're travelling to Connemara, and Corrib at home to Ballinrobe. Again, a local derby, so to speak. So now we bring in the seeded teams, and we now draw them out. And those seeded teams will be drawn out first, and then we'll bring in the winners of the other games into that last 16 draw. So, John, there are 3... Well, actually, I could say how many seeded teams very, very nervous right now because it could mean the end of their competition, or it could mean the start of a wonderful journey. Let's see who's at home first for the first of our seeded teams. The date, by the way, 5th of March for the preliminary round of the Under 13 Boys Cup. The 11th of March that weekend for the last 16. And the first team at home are Claremorris. Claremorris will be at home. And they will play Oughterard. So Claremorris at home to Oughterard. Next up, and these will be at home, and it's Sligo. So the Old Craigs Road will be playing host to Galwegians. So Galwegians playing Sligo. At home are Corinthians. So Corinthians at home in the Boys Under 13 Cup, and they will play a local derby because it's Galway Bay. So Galway Bay and Corinthians meeting in the last 16. Now we move on to this stage of the competition. Now this team that we've drawn out next will be away from home in the last 16, and it's Loughrea. Loughrea will be away from home. The team that will be at home are Craigs. Craigs will be at home. Away will be Buccaneers. Buccaneers will be away. At home will be Ballina. Ballina will be at home. And finally, away from home will be Ballinasloe. So Ballinasloe will be away from home. So now what we're going to do is we put them into a little pile there, because we now have to take our winners, which we don't know obviously will be, so they will be called winners 1, or winner A, B, C, D and D, and they will then fill in the gaps. So the first team drawn out will be at home to Loughrea in the last 16. So whoever wins this particular game will be at home to Loughrea in the last 16 of the Under 13 Boys Cup, and it is the winner of preliminary round game B. So the winner of Tuam and Dunmore, they will be at home to Loughrea in the last 16. Now, who's away to Craigs? Well, it's the winner of preliminary C. So the winner of Westport and Monavea, they will be making the journey to the Green to take on Craigs. Who will be at home to Buccaneers? The winner of preliminary game A. So the winner of Castlebar and Gort, they will be at home to Buccaneers. We've got 2 more to draw out. And who's making their journey to Ballina? Winner of preliminary game E. So it's E, just to make sure. And it's Corrib or Ballinrobe. The winner of that game, they will be away to Ballina. And finally, the winner of preliminary D, which is Connemara or Carrick-on-Shannon, they've got a reward for their game, because they will find themselves at home to Ballinasloe. So will Ballinasloe be heading to the Monastery Field or heading to Carrick? Well, time will tell. Let's recap one more time the Under 13 Boys Cup draw. Just to remind you again of the preliminary round: Castlebar and Gort, Tuam, Dunmore, Westport, Monavea, Connemara, Carrick-on-Shannon, and Corrib and Ballinrobe. And remember, these are the word litters you have to keep an eye out for, because in the last 16 you've got Claremorris and Oughterard, Sligo and Galwegians, Corinthians and Galway Bay, winner of preliminary B and Loughrea, Craigs against the winner of prelim C, the winner of prelim A against Buccaneers, Ballina at home to the winners of prelim E, and the winner of prelim D, well, they will be at home to Ballinasloe. So that is the draw for the Boys Under 13 Cup, sponsored by Bank of Ireland. And we'll be moving on to our next draw. Remember, there are 6 boys competitions and we've only got 1 of them done, so there's still 5 to go. And the next one up is the Boys Under 14 Cup. So I'm going to give Cathal them, and if you'll hand me these. Now these are the unseeded teams again, John, for the Under 14 Boys Cup. And let's just start at the teams themselves. And Corinthians have 2 teams in this particular competition. Their blue team are seeded, their black team are unseeded. You Sligo, Craigs, Buccaneers, Ballina, Westport, Galwegians and Loughrea. And again, we see Carrick-on-Shannon, also Ballinrobe, Claremorris, Dunmore, Castlebar, Corinthians black as we mentioned, Corrib, Ballinasloe, Monavea, Gort and the Galway Bay Oughterard amalgamation. So there is an interesting little note on this, and people may just have copped it, John, in the sense that in the preliminary round, if you are one of the lucky ones, you will find yourself in the last 16, because you will get a bye into that. But there are still 3 games to be played at that stage of the competition.
Yep, and it's a look at the draw.
It really is. It really is. Well, let's move on to the preliminary round draw for the Boys Under 14 Cups. So I will once again put these into the cup, and I'll give them a little bit of a jiggle around and get you to draw the first ones. Like, nothing up my sleeve. Not possible when I'm wearing a T-shirt. Let's move on to the first team to receive a bye into the last 16 of the Boys Under 14 Cup, and it is Corrib. Corrib into the last 16 of the Boys Under 14 Cup. The next team that will be getting a bye into the last 16 are Dunmore. So Dunmore will be in the last 16 of the Boys Under 14 Cup. The next team to get a bye are Ballinrobe. Ballinrobe will have a bye into the last 16. Next up is Ballinasloe. Ballinasloe, who will get a bye into the last 16, which leaves us one team left that will get a bye, and that team are Clare Morris. Clare Morris will have a bye. Now, we move into what are the games now, because there are now still 3 games to be played. First team will be drawn at home, and they are Castlebar. Castlebar will be at home, but who will they play? Question is, who will they play? And it's Carrick and Shannon who are on the road. So Carrick and Shannon heading to Castlebar, not a terribly long journey, long enough though. And at home are Corinthians. Corinthians Black, I may add. Corinthians Black will be at home, and the team they will play are Monivea. So Corinthians Black will play Monivea. And finally, 2 teams left, and who's at home? And it's Galway Bay Uachtarard, who are at home, and they will play Gort. So we now have our draw for the preliminary round of the Boys Under 14 Cup. Games will play the weekend of the 25th of February. And just to recap once more, Corrib, Dunmore, Ballinrobe, Ballinasloe and Claremorris all have byes. Carrick and Shannon will be away to Castlebar. Corinthians Black will be at home to Monivea. Monivea making a short journey for that one. And the same for Gort, only up the road, where they take on Galway Bay Uachtarard. So they are our preliminary round games. Now we bring our seeded teams into the mix. And those seeded teams will now be drawn out. And as you can see, it's very straightforward, in fact, for this stage of the last 16, because the seeded teams are being drawn, as are the rest of the competitions, home, away, and so on down the line for those 8 games. So if we can have our seeded teams, here we go. And once again, our seeded teams are Corinthians Blue, Sligo, Craigs, Buccaneers, Ballina, Westport, Galwegians and Loughrea. So John, who will be the home team in the last 16? And the first home team will be Corinthians Blue. Corinthians Blue will be at home. The team that will be away will be Westport. So Westport will be the seeded team that will be away. So Corinthians Blue will be the first team and Westport the second, as we see there. Now next up, and this team will be at home, and it's Loughrea. So Loughrea will be at home. This team will be away, Galwegians. So Galwegians will be the team that are away from home. The next team that will be, this team will be at home for their last 16 game, and it's Ballina. Ballina will be at home. Our next team, and these will be away, and they are Buccaneers. So Buccaneers will be away from home. Next team at home will be Craigs. Craigs will be at home. And finally, this team will be on the road, it's Sligo. So Sligo will be away from home. So there are seeded teams now into the draw for the last 16. Problem is, we have to find out who's going to play them. And Cathal, thank you very much. So our preliminaries, and as you can see, they are A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and H. So you're going to be hearing me mention letters. We will correspond them with the respective team in a moment. But who will be away to Corinthians Blue, who are making the journey to Clondeish? And it's Corrib. Corrib will take on, so Corrib, of course, team that got a bye. The winner of Prelim A, they have a bye. They will take on Corinthians Blue. Who is at home to Westport? Westport supporters are kind of hoping they can get a nice day out now and a good long journey. Well, not really, because they're going to Claremorris. They're heading to Claremorris. So Westport will be going to Claremorris. Next up, and this team will receive a home draw against Galwegians, and it's the winner of preliminary round F. So Castlebar or Carrick and Shannon, they will be the team that will be at home to Galwegians. Oh no, I beg your pardon, away to Loughrea. Winner of prelim F away to Loughrea. Next up. And this team will be at home to Galwegians. And it's Dunmore. So Dunmore at home to Galwegians. Who's making the journey to Ballina? It's Ballinasloe. So Ballinasloe away to Ballina. Buccaneers will be on the road and they will be heading to the winner of Prelim G. So it could be Corinthians Black or Monavea. So Buccaneers will be playing either Corinthians Black or Monavea in the last 16 of the Under-14 Boys Cup. So we now move to Craigs, who are at home. And they will be at home to Ballinrobe. Craigs will be at home to Ballinrobe, and that leaves us with one team left, and that is the winner of Prelim H. So Galway Bay, Oughterard or Gort, they will be at home to Sligo. So Galway Bay or Oughterard, Galway Bay, Oughterard or Gort will be at home to Sligo. Right, we will recap these again just to keep everybody up to speed. So Corb will have a bye, Dunmore, Ballinrobe, Ballinasloe and Claremorris all have byes into the last 16. Castlebar will play Carrick and Shannon, Corinthians Black will play Monavea, and Galway Bay Oughterard will play Gort. And like I said before, keep an eye on those letters on the left because they are the letters corresponding to this part of the draw, and they are Corinthians Blue against the winner of Prelim A. The winner of Prelim E will play Westport. The winner of Prelim F will play Loughrea. The winner of Prelim B will play Galwegians. The winner of Prelim D play Ballina. The winner of Prelim G play Buccaneers. The winner of Prelim C play Craigs. And the winner of Prelim H, they will take on Sligo. And they are our fixtures for the Under-14 Boys Cup. Games to be played the weekend of the 4th of March, 2023, of course, this year. So, excuse me, there are Under-14 Boys Cup draws. So we have the Under-13s done, Under-14s to do, but we still have the 15s, 16s, 17s and 18s to go. No time like the present to keep going with the draw for the Under-15 Boys Cup. And again, we have preliminary round games to tell you about. And again, do you know what, John, looking at the amount of teams here, it is an unbelievable amount of teams involved in the Under-15 Boys Cup. Our seeded teams are Sligo, Craigs, Corinthians, Ballina, Galwegians, Carrick and Shannon, Galway Bay and Buccaneers Black. Again, Buccaneers have two teams actually in this one now, and their black and their yellow team who are unseeded. Other unseeded teams are Ballinasloe, Monavea, Loughrea, Connemara, Gort, Westport, Corb, Ballinrobe, Tuam, Claremorris and Dunmore. That is an amazing amount of teams for a competition.
Absolutely, yeah. And again, it's credit to the clubs and their coaches and their volunteers, keeping lads involved in rugby, retaining players. I mean, you will inevitably, as you get to the higher ages, you will see some fall off, but it's great to see at this age that players are being retained and being kept in there. Yeah.
And obviously the games are in March, so the 4th of March, so there's now a build-up for these teams. They can start looking forward to these games and start, some of them may still have league games.
Indeed,
a lot of them will probably have schools games, probably involved in junior or juvenile.
Yeah.
So there's going to be a bit of rugby for these teams as well, and they'll be all kind of aiming to peak for that particular weekend.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, these teams are, as you say, they are still involved in schools and in the league competitions are still running. So they will be involved in games right up to the start of the cup.
Right, well, let's look at the draw for the boys in the 15 Cup. And again, keep a very close eye on this screen because as you will see, we have got teams who will receive byes. So A, B, C and D will all receive a bye into the last 16. And then we move into the matches themselves for E, F, G and H. And those teams, of course, will then join the seeded teams in the last 16. So if we will start with the unseeded teams and find out who have got byes into the last 16. So, John, if you would draw them out now, So the first team, and this team will receive a bye into the last 16 of the Connacht Under-15 Boys Cup. And the team that will receive a bye, first team to receive a bye, are Loughrea. So Loughrea, the first team to receive a bye. The next team to receive a bye into the last 16 are Buccaneers Yellow. So Buccaneers Yellow have received a bye into the last 16. Next team to receive a bye are Ballinasloe. Ballinasloe have received a bye. And the last team to receive a bye will be Connemara. So Connemara have a bye into the last 16 of the boys under 15 cup. Now we move on to the matchups. And the first team drawn out will be at home, and they are Gort. So Gort will be at home, and they will play Dunmore. Just make sure. Dunmore. So Gort will play Dunmore. Next team drawn out will be at home, and they are Westport. Westport. Caraholly will be the venue for their game with Tuam. So Tuam will be heading to Westport. Next up are Ballinrobe. Ballinrobe will be at home, and they will play Clare Morris. An all Mayo tie. Ballinrobe against Clare Morris. And finally, the team at home will be Corrib. Corrib will be at home, and they will play Monivea. So Monivea will be heading to Headford for the preliminary round of the under-15 Boys' Cup. So I'm just going to put them there because it's time to bring in the seeded teams now to find out who is going where. And once again, the teams in yellow are the seeded teams. So one will be at home, one will be away, and so on and so forth until the last team is drawn. So John, there you go. I'll just leave it to you. And this team will be at home in the last 16 of the under-15 Boys' Cup. And that team who are at home are Ballina. Ballina will be at home. The next team to be drawn out will be away from home, and it's Carrick and Shannon. Carrick and Shannon will be away. Drawn at home are Galway Bay. Galway Bay at home. Next team are away from home, and it's Corinthians. Corinthians under-15s will be away for their last 16 tie. Next up at home are Craigs. Craigs will be at home. Away will be Galwegians. Galwegians away. Home are Sligo. Sligo at home. And finally, away are Buccaneers Black. So Buccaneers Black are going to be away from home. Now, just noticing, John, I was kind of smiling. I thought the two Muckderard teams were going to have each other. Possibility the two Buccaneers teams could yet.
That is a possibility, absolutely.
Well, we'll find out.
We'll be watching for that one.
I think we're all going to watching to see what happens now with that one. I am putting them into the cup and giving them a stir around. Give them a good stir around. And the first question, Ballina are going to be wondering is who's going to be visiting them on the weekend of the 11th of March, the week before St. Patrick's Day. It will be Buccaneers Yellow. So Buccaneers Yellow will be away to Ballina. Buccaneers Yellow. The team away to Galway Bay will be, or at home to Carrick and Shannon, team at home to Carrick and Shannon are Ballinasloe. Ballinasloe at home to Carrick and Shannon. The team away to Galway Bay are Loughrea. Loughrea away to Galway Bay. So who are Corinthians going? They're going out to Connemara, out to the Monastery Field. Connemara will be at home to Corinthians. Who will be away to Craigs? Who's heading to the green? Well, it's the winner of Prelim H. So the winner of Corrib and Monivea will be away to Craigs in the last 16. Winner of Prelim H, Corrib or Monivea, away to Craigs. Who are at home to Galwegians? Well, it's the winner of Prelim E. So Gort or Dunmore will be at home to Galwegians in the last 16 of the under-15 Boys' Cup. That is Gort or Dunmore. We move on to who's going to Sligo. Who's heading out to Strand Hill in March? The winner of Prelim G. So Ballinrobe or Clare Morris. Ballinrobe or Clare Morris, they'll be heading to Sligo, heading out to Strand Hill. And finally, Buccaneers Black will be heading to the winners of Westport or Tuam. So Buccaneers Black will be heading to either Westport or Tuam. The winner of Prelim F will be at home to Buccaneers Black. And Let's go through the draw once again. We know the preliminary round, but let's move into the last 16. And again, like I said, each letter on this side is what corresponds to the particular game. So Ballina will be at home to the winner of Prelim B. Carrick-on-Shannon away to the winner of Prelim C. Galway Bay at home to the winner of Prelim A. Corinthians away to the winner of Prelim D. Craigs at home to the winner of Prelim H. Galwegians away to the winner of Prelim E. The winner of Prelim G will be away to Sligo, and the winner of Prelim F will be at home to Buccaneers Black. That is the draw for the Under-15 Boys Cup preliminary round on the 4th of March. A week later, the last 16. And I must stress, we're not finished with these age groups yet, because there is still a draw to be made. Once all of the other groups have been drawn, once all the other age groups have been drawn, we have one other draw to make, and that will determine regarding the quarterfinals and the semi-finals of each competition, and it goes right across the board. So just because you think your draw is finished, it's not. If you want to see where you want to be after the last 16, stick around and stay with us. There is the Under-15 Boys Cup draw, and we now move on to the Under-16. And the Under-16 is the last of the knockout games, John, because just to remind people, 17s and 18 and a halves are being played in a group format this year.
That's right, yeah. This is something that was discussed through the year with the Youth Committee, and the decision was made to make a change this year. It's following the same format that the schools use, and so we will be doing it under 17s and under 18 and a half, and then it will be reviewed after the year to see where we go from there.
Well, there is a benefit, obviously, because it means the teams will get more games, and there's a possibility. You know, the great thing about it is, I mean, the cup is special because it's knockout, and there's one thing about it, but at 17s and 18s and a halves, the fact that they will get a couple of games in the competition means that they're not out for it after one game.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. And as I say, it is following the same format of the schools, which works very well. So it is a trial for this year, and to be reviewed again for next year.
We're going to go to the Under-16 Boys Cup, and the reason I smile is because if you look at the preliminary round for that, just hand that over to Carl, thank you. And this is the, I'm going to put them there for a moment before we put them into the cup. Very strong possibility of a team making the last 16, except for two. The very last game will be a shootout.
Last game, competitive, yeah. All the others are buys.
So all the others are buys. So just to mention, in the preliminary round, from A to F, those teams, the first of those teams, as I'm doing my maths very quickly, the first 6, I think it is, get buys, and then the last 2 play off for the last 16 spots. So just to do this now again, and give it a good shake and a good mix. Right. So the first team to receive a bye in the Boys Under-16 Cup into the last 16 on the weekend of the 4th of March are Ballinrobe. Ballinrobe have a bye into the last 16 of the Boys Under-16 Cup. The next team to receive a bye are Gort. Gort have received a bye. The next team, so Ballinrobe and then Gort. The next team to receive a bye are Clare Morris. Clare Morris have received a bye.
It's two there, sorry.
And I nearly caught it.
Put it back in again.
Yeah, put it back in. So they can happen.
It's a blank one.
And that's a blank page, so we'll hand that back over. The tension is building. Everyone's still trying to see if they've got the bye or not. Well, if you're from Monavea, you'll be happy because you have a bye into the last 16. Monavea are the next team to receive a bye. And the next team to receive a bye are Carrick-on-Shannon. So Carrick-on-Shannon have a bye into the last 16 of the Under-16 Boys Cup. And the last team to receive a bye are Westport. So Westport will have a bye into the last 16. So it leaves us with the 2 teams that actually have to play it off in the preliminary rounds. And the first of them and the team at home are Castlebar. Castlebar are at home, and they will be playing Connemara Uachtarard. So Castlebar will play Connemara Uachtarard in the preliminary round of the Under-16 Boys Cup. Ballinrobe, Gort, Clare Morris, Monavea, Carrick-on-Shannon and Westport all have received byes into the last 16, and they will be joining our seeded teams who are now going into the cup, because we have, as you can see, Interesting situation for the first of them, John, is that the first two teams that play are seeded and will play each other.
Yep. And again, this is the look of the draw.
Okay, so there you go, John. I have given us a bit of a mix. I'll let you to draw out the first team, and this seeded team will be at home, and it's Sligo. Sligo at home, and they will play Corinthians.
You won't thank me for that.
Sligo will play Corinthians. They will not thank you for that, John. But it is the draw as it is. Now, the next team that are drawn out will be away from home in the last 16, and it's Corrib who are on the road. So Corrib will be away. Our next team are at home, and they are Buccaneers. Buccaneers at home. Our next team are away from home, and it's Galway Bay. Galway Bay are away from home. The next team drawn out will be at home for their last 16 game, and it is Ballina. Ballina will be the team that are at home. Away from home will be Craigs. Craigs will be away from home. Two more teams from the seeded team list to be drawn out, and the first of them, who will be at home, are Galwegians. Galwegians at home, and finally away from home will be Loughrea. So we now have our seeded teams. There is one all-seeded encounter. Sligo will play Corinthians. Corrib will be away, Buccaneers will be at home, Galway Bay away, Ballina home, Craigs away, Galwegians at home, and Loughrea away. What's left is to find out who they are playing. And here we have it. Into the cup. So, if you're one of those seeded teams who are not involved in the shootout, like Sligo and Corinthians, or like Castlebar and Uachtarard actually in the preliminary rounds, who are you going to get? John, first team. And this team will be at home to Corrib. And that team is the winner of Prelim G, which is the winner of Castlebar and Connemara Uachtarard. So the winner of Castlebar and Connemara Uachtarard will be at home to Corrib in the last 16. Buccaneers will be at home to Westport. Buccaneers at home to Westport. Galway Bay, they are away, and they're heading to Carrick-on-Shannon. Galway Bay away to Carrick-on-Shannon. Ballina, they will be at home to Claremorris. So Ballina at home to Claremorris. Where are Craigs going? They're heading to Monavea. Craigs will be away to Monavea. Galwegians, they will be at home to Ballinrobe. Galwegians at home to Ballinrobe, and we've got one team left. And that team, and it's again a bit of a local derby, Gort will be at home to Loughrea. So Gort at home to Loughrea in the last 16 of the boys under 16 Cup. So we'll just give a quick recap again to the draw in full. The under 16 Boys Cup preliminary round, Ballinrobe, Gort, Claremorris, Monavea, Carrick-on-Shannon and Westport have all received byes into the last 16. Castlebar will be at home to Connemara Uachtarard. In that last 16 draw, well, you've got Sligo and Corinthians taking on each other. Corrib will be away to the winner of Prelim G. Buccaneers at home to the winner of Prelim F. Galway Bay, they are away to the winner of Prelim E. Ballina at home to the winner of Prelim C. Craigs away to the winner of Prelim D. Galwegians at home to the winner of Prelim A. And the winner of Prelim B will be, the winner of Prelim B will be at home to Loughrea. And that concludes the draw for the under 16 Boys Cup. Now what we're going to do is we're going to break a little bit for a minute, because what's coming up next is in fact a rather important draw and also a change of format. The under 17 and under 18 and a half Boys Cups will this year be played under a pool format. And that means that teams will be getting more than one game in their respective competitions. We're just going to take a little bit of a break for a moment, and when we come back, we'll be bringing you those draws in full, the boys under 17 and boys under 18 and a half youth cups for 2023. Let that dwell on you for a minute, those draws. We'll be back in a moment. Well, we've had the draws now for the under 13s, 14s, 15s, and 16s cups, and we still have 3 draws to go. I did tell you at the beginning that there is one special draw after the other draws are completed, and that is the draws regarding the quarterfinals and the semi-finals of all of the competitions. There will be one draw, and that draw then is the same for every other competition, and I'll explain about that more in a moment. But we're now moving on to the draws for the under 17 and under 18 and a half Connacht Cups. And once again, may I thank Bank of Ireland, who are sponsoring these competitions. Without their support, like we said earlier on, they just could not happen. Format is different this year, and the reason for that is, well, something new, a bit of an experiment, and I'll talk to John about it in a moment. But this year, the under 17 and under 18 and a half cup competitions are being played in a pool format. You will have 4 pools. The first team that will be going into each pool will be the first seeds. The team that will be following them will be the second seeds. So the first seeds will go into A, B, C, and D. The second seeds will then join them in A, B, C, and D, and then we move into the unseeded teams who will be joining them in those respective pools. The top team in each pool will qualify for the semi-finals. The team that finished second will be given an option of playing in the plate if they so wish. That's basically it in the most basic form possible. John, to, I suppose, go into it in a little bit more detail. It's done in a pool format as compared to previous years, which was straight knockout. And as we did mention, the idea is to give teams more games. And, you know, for all of these teams, it's going to be fantastic because they will have 3 games in this competition, regardless of whether they get out of it or not.
Yeah, I mean, as I said, it's following the format of the Schools Cup competition, which has proven to be successful in this manner. It is something that we're trialling now at under 17s and under 18s for this season, and it will be reviewed at the end of the season to see where we go from there. If it's a success, I no doubt it will be carried through other ages as well. But as you say, the aim is to give more games to more teams.
Yeah, it really is going to be something to look forward to, all of those pool games. And it will also keep the excitement going in clubs as well, because teams build momentum. If they win a couple of games, they start getting excited and they start dreaming of the knockout stages. And it's like the World Cup. Every team wants to, go past the pool into the knockouts. So we'll be hoping Ireland will be doing that this year. Interesting to see Scotland, how they've decided to do their pre-season. That's a shin scale all together. Yeah. But it's the same kind of, it's a kind of a World Cup format in that respect.
It almost is, yeah. I mean, there's the round robin format, and then you're into knockout. So you get the best of both worlds, and it does, as you say, it builds excitement towards those last few matches where that's when it really gets serious.
Yeah, that's where it really decides to, as I say, cut the wheat from the chaff in many respects, and that's what it's all. That is what this cup competition will most certainly do. Let's look at the seeded teams for a moment. And the under-17 boys, as you can see, there are several seeded teams. You have Buccaneers, Sligo, Corinthians, and Ballinasloe, Galwegians, Westport, Loughrea, and Ballina. The unseeded teams then that will be joining them will be Castlebar, Corb, Tuam Dunmore, Gort and Claremorris, and we'll be getting into that in just a moment. But I have in my hand here now, these are the first seeded teams, and they are Galwegians, Corinthians, Sligo and Buccaneers. One will be in each pool. So John, if you would draw out the first team please, and they will be the first team in Pool A. And the first team in Pool A are going to be Corinthians. So Corinthians will be in Pool A. They'll be the first team in Pool A. The first team in Pool B will be Buccaneers. So Buccaneers will be in Pool B. In Pool C will be Sligo. And in Pool D will be Galwegians. So they are our first seeds, and they are Corinthians in A, Buccaneers in B, Sligo in C, and Galwegians in D. We now move on to our second seeds. And our second seeds are, and I'll show them to you, they are Ballina, Loughrea, Westport, and Ballinasloe. So they are our second seeds. So John, if you would do that. Excuse me. And the first team that will be going into Pool A with Corinthians are Ballinasloe. Ballinasloe will be in Pool A with Corinthians. In Pool B with Buccaneers are Westport. Westport in Pool B. In Pool C with Sligo are Loughrea. Loughrea in Pool C, and in Pool D are Ballina. Ballina will be joining Galwegians. So Ballina join Galwegians in Pool D. So they are our seeded teams: Corinthians, Ballinasloe in Pool A, Buccaneers and Westport in Pool B, Sligo and Loughrea in Pool C, and Galwegians and Ballina in Pool D. Now the non-seeded teams will now join them. And I can see one, by my guess, John, I could be wrong, but one pool will have 4 teams, the others will have 3.
That's correct, yeah. That's just due to the numbers that are of teams that are in the competition.
Okay, and we are going to draw them still in the same way, A, B, C and D. So John, if you draw the first team that will be in Pool A, which I reckon by my maths will be the 4-team pool, and it's Claremorris. So Claremorris will be in Pool A along with Corinthians and Ballinasloe. In Pool B with Westport and Buccaneers are Corb. Corb in Pool B. In Pool C are Gort. Gort with Sligo and Loughrea. And in Pool D, one of these teams will be a 3-team pool, one will be in the 4-team pool, and the team in the 3-team pool in Pool D are Castlebar. So Castlebar in Pool D, and then that means that Tuam Dunmore will be in Pool A along with Corinthians, Ballinasloe, Claremorris. That is now going to be a 4-team pool. So let's recap on those 4 pools once more. In Pool A, Corinthians, Ballinasloe, Claremorris and Tuam Dunmore. In Pool B, Buccaneers, Westport and Corb. In Pool C, Sligo, Loughrea and Gort. And in Pool D, Galwegians, Ballina and Castlebar. And I would say, John, that those games will be getting underway around the end of February, beginning of March, by going by the other, the other dates, the other competitions.
Yeah, under 17s, under 18s will be played on alternative weekends, but in around those dates.
And just to repeat again, it's the top team in each pool that goes to the semi-final.
That's correct, yeah.
And the second teams then will have the opportunity of playing in the plate if they want to.
That's right. Yeah.
But they'll be given the option if they want to or get involved in it.
The place will be there for them if they want to.
Okay, well, I think it's worth going for the plate if you do
Absolutely,
finish second, because it's open to anybody. The thing about it is the 3-team pools. It's open. I mean, it's so wide open. There's no team there I can see that actually in any of the 4 pools that stand out as red hot favourites. So this could make it for a very, very tasty kind of a competition, really.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the teams, we have seeded teams, but all the teams are very well matched in this age. Yeah,
yeah, absolutely. Loughrea and Gort's going to be a cracker of a game, I can tell you. Ballina Castlebar, no doubt, will be a good one. I can see Westport Corb or Buccaneers Westport. And as for Pool A, any of those games will be absolute humdingers. Corinthians, Ballinasloe, Claremorris and Tuam Dunmore. So that is our under-17 Boys Cup for 2023. So I will now take these pieces of paper and I will hand them back over to Cathal. And Cathal, you have got the seeded teams for the under-18 Cup. So we are now going to move on to the under-18 Cup draw. This is the under-18 and a half Cup. And it is a competition that has been on the go for many, many, many years. The same as the old under-16s as well, dare I say it. And it's a competition that is always incredibly close and has always given some great rugby. And John, I'm stalling for a moment because just to remind people as well that the Cup finals are always a special event in the sports ground over a couple of weekends. It really just makes for fantastic rugby.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's been the tradition now for a few years, and we're grateful to Connacht Rugby for providing that facility to us. That it's a big deal for these lads to play a game in the sports ground, and this is their chance.
And they get the chance to play on the 4G this year,
4G
which is the new surface.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's really going to be a fantastic, and the way, in fairness, the way it's run is really, really organised. And the new surface, they'll be on it. I mean, they'll be playing on the same surface as the professionals, as the seniors as well. So, and they get to use the same facilities. It's all really something very, very special. And, even at under 18 and a half, that's what they aspire to. The under 13s the same way. And the girls as well. They will be all part of a very, very special weekend.
Absolutely, yeah. And as you say, they get to use all the facilities, including the same changing rooms that the pro teams use. They'll have access to that. And the crowds, it's the first time that a lot of these teams will be playing in front of big crowds, so that'll be a big event for them.
Yep, Clan Terrace will be packed. There's no doubt about
Hopefully
it. Always is. Let's look at the seeded teams now for the under 18 and a half boys. And as you will see, there are 6 teams, so we will have our 4 top seeds and so on. We'll go into that in a moment. Ballinasloe, we'll start with the seeded teams actually first. Buccaneers, Sligo, Corinthians, Monavea, Galwegians and Ballina. And then Ballinasloe, Corrib, Westport, Oughterard, Castlebar and Loughrea are the unseeded teams. And I have here the first seeds. So they are, Monavea, Corinthians, Sligo, and finally Buccaneers. So these will be the first teams in each of the 4 pools. So John, if you could draw us the first team, that will be in Pool A. This team will be in Pool A. And they are Buccaneers. So Buccaneers will be in Pool A. In Pool B will be Sligo. Sligo will be in Pool B. In Pool C will be Corinthians. And in Pool D will be Monavea. So our top seeds now go in there. Now, if you will hand us the other 2. Now, these 2 will be going into Pool A and Pool B. These are second seeds. So it will be Galwegians, or, let's just put Galwegians into the cup, or Ballina. So those 2. So, John, if you take out the first team that will go into Pool A. And they are Ballina are in Pool A, and in Pool B then, by process of elimination, are Galwegians. So they are. Now, we're going to move on now to our unseeded teams. Now, our unseeded teams will be going A, B, C and D again. So you will have Oughterard, Castlebar, Loughrea, Ballinasloe, Corrib and Westport. They are our unseeded teams. So, John, first team will let you draw. We'll start with C. Okay. So this team will join Corinthians in Pool C. Being corrected, the voice you heard there is Cathal Roddy, who has been keeping everything on the straight and narrow right throughout the evening. And the team in Pool C joining Corinthians are Westport. And in Pool D will be Corrib. So we now have 2 teams in each of the pools, and we keep going. And they are Ballinasloe in Pool A. In Pool B are Loughrea. In Pool C are Castlebar. Castlebar and Westport in the same pool. And in Pool D are Oughterard. We have our 4 pools of 3 teams for the under 18.5 Boys Cup. In Pool A, Buccaneers, Ballina and Ballinasloe. In Pool B, Sligo, Galwegians and Loughrea. In Pool C, Corinthians, Westport and Castlebar. And in Pool D, Monivea, Corrib and Oughterard. They are our 4 pools, and John, already my mouth is watering because I can see a couple of absolute classics there. Sligo Galwegians, one example, Monivea, Corrib and Corrib Oughterard again, and Castlebar and Westport and Corinthians. I mean, you're going to have a couple of massive games in all 4 pools.
Yeah, absolutely. As I see, there's a few home derbies there, and a few have a bit to travel, but it's going to be a cracking competition, I think. You know.
Just before we go any further, as regards who is at home and who is away, how is that going to be determined?
That draw will be done separately after this event. Yeah, so that'll.
So the teams will know. The teams will. I mean, that part of the draw will be held after this. But
yeah,
we now know the pools, which is the important thing. The rest is immaterial. They know who they are and they know who they're facing, which is really what it's all about. And that is our draw for the under 18.5 Boys Cup. Competitions for that starting around the end of February, beginning of March. Full details on the Connacht Rugby website and also through the Age Grade Competitions Committee, who will be informing all of the clubs regarding the details of their specific games. And the cup is empty. I can hand this back over to Cathal, and we now move on to what is the final draw of the 10 that have actually taken place this evening. And they are the draws regarding the quarterfinals and the semi-finals. And as I mentioned, it applies to all cup competitions. So from the girls under 14s all the way through to the situation with the boys under 18s, and we'll get to that in a minute. But as regards the majority of competitions up to under 17, this is the way it's going to pan out.
Yeah, from under 13s up to under 16s, the quarter-final draw and the semi-final draw will apply to them. Then when we get to under 17s and under 18.5, it will be just the semi-final draw that will apply to them.
And that'll be Pool A, Pool B, Pool C and Pool D. So that's basically how that will pan out. We will get to that in a moment.
Yeah.
Let's move on to the quarter-final draw. So remember, it doesn't matter what competition, whether it be under 14 girls or under 14 up to under 16, this applies to you. And regarding how your position will be in the last 8 of the Cup. And the first team that will be drawn out, winner of last 16-2, will be at home. So winner of last 16-2 will be at home, and they will be playing the winner of last 16-3. Next up at home will be the winner of last 16-4. And they will be at home to the winner of last 16-1. Next up, winner of last 16-5. Make sure that, I'll check my own glasses, 5. And they will be at home to winner of last 16-6. And we've got 2 more, and the team at home will be winner of last 16-7. And next up will be winner of last 16-8. They will be away from home. So the quarter-final draw, and remember this applies to all cup competitions. Winner of last 16-2 against 3, 4 against 1, 5 against 6 and 7 against 8. Quarter-finals. Now we move on to the semi-finals and who will be where. So again, back into the cup again. Now this is actually, this applies now to all competitions. Under 14, 16, 18 girls, 13 to 18 and a half boys. John, you'll take out the first team who will be at home. And that will be winner of quarter-final 4 will have a home draw. Winner of quarter-final 4 will have a home draw, and they will take on winner of quarter-final 2. And next up, winner of quarter-final 1, and they will be at home to winner of quarter-final 3. And they are the draws for the Bank of Ireland Connacht Rugby Youth Cups for 2023. Full details on the Connacht Rugby website. More to come as the weeks progress. Now's your chance to get your training done if you haven't been doing it already. And also, of course, for the excitement to build in your club ahead of these cup competitions. It has been a fantastic evening, and it's been a lot of fun and very exciting, and I can tell you already the anticipation is building ahead of the preliminary rounds and the first round and last 16 games in all of our Youth Cup competitions. My thanks to John Fitzmaurice for doing an outstanding job regarding the draws. I want to thank Cathal Roddy as well, who's been doing sterling work and talking in my ear every so often when correction needed to be done. Thanks to all the guys here in Sound to Light, just outside of Carnmore, in Carnmore we can say, because they've been incredible as always for what has been a very, very smooth show. And to you, thank you very much indeed for joining us. We hope that you enjoyed the draws, and we hope that your club has a fantastic cup run. To Bank of Ireland sponsors and to Connacht Rugby as always, deepest thanks. The fun only starts now. Have a great evening. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.